Welcome to Maelstrom Radio presents Here With Me, a series about the stories people want to share about their journeys with mental illness, trauma, and negative thoughts. We are not professionals, nor are we a substitute for their professional diagnosis or treatments. Please enjoy Here With Me. Welcome, everybody. Today, in this episode, I have Zahn with me to discuss mental health from both the aspect of somebody who has had mental health issues and also works in the mental health field. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and let Zahn go ahead and take the floor and tell us his journey/story, and we'll break into discussion from there. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think like most people, my sense to, as I call darkness, in regards to depression, started out in situations that were kind of beyond my control. As a child, my parents divorced pretty early, so my youngest memories are from going house to house. And eventually, my mom moved away, and then my dad couldn't afford to take care of me, so I ended up moving completely across the country to live with my grandparents in Hawaii. And then we ended up moving around a few more times until my grandfather died. And then I moved back in with my dad. And at the time, his girlfriend, which by state laws in Pennsylvania, they became like legally married in that sense. So it was like my stepmother at this point. And she was supposed to be like one of those devout Christians. So that was a belief she always tried to push on me. But it started out all right, and then gradually things started to decline between our relationship. I would start to get blamed for things, I had no hand in doing, like something breaking in the house, and blame me for it. And then, the biggest thing was if I started having like any kind of bad grade, she would have like these screaming sessions. So it began as that was kind of like the course that gradually escalated through my childhood, is that she would have these screaming sessions and ground me for months at a time from doing anything that I like to do. And then as I grew older, my dad started getting in on that till the point where I remember one time it was such an explosive episode where I was, literally in the corner of my room, like cowering in fear because my dad was smashing things, flipping stuff over in my room and yelling at me along with my stepmother at the time. So it was probably about the time that I was 8 until 14, I think, is whenever I had to deal with my ex-stepmother and those situations gradually getting worse. And then increasing in different ways of being berated. Just like at holiday events, like I would get yelled at in front of my entire family for stupid things. There was even a time where I did something or I didn't do something right away, so I got grounded for it till I apologized. And I thought it was so dumb that I was angry and I didn't apologize for 3 days. And when I finally did, the next morning as I'm leaving for school, my ex-stepmother left me a note talking. It was like a 4-page long note just talking about, what a trash person I was. I'd only ever breed trash. I'd never amount to anything. And eventually it started getting to the point where I finally talked to my then best friend. I had him come over, and it was to the point where I didn't want to live anymore because I was just so miserable. And it was also in that time where I began to take not so healthy outlets like a self-harm, basically, just because it was kind of was kind of a release from pain, just like a kind of escape. But he was a teenager too in the early 2000s, so he didn't really know how to handle that kind of information, and then nothing ever really went anywhere. And then even later on in my teenage years, when I tried to reach out to other people for help and other friends, eventually it got to the point where my parents took the phones out of the house, so I couldn't contact family members, my friends, and I would be grounded to the house except for school. So basically, I ended up kind of like on my own dealing with the situation. And it finally boiled over when I got accused of plotting to run away, and I was taken to a hospital to be evaluated for psychiatric admission. And I remember being so angry that I didn't even talk to my parents at the time for, I think 5 days. And the minimum I had to be there was 3. And then when we finally started talking, I don't think I left for like a week till we came to some kind of resolution. And my dad was the only one who was there at the time. He didn't, my ex-stepmother then didn't really want to participate, I guess. But I think it was kind of at that point where it was just a situation beyond fixing, because when I got discharged and I agreed to be discharged rather, and I went home with my dad, the first thing I told him I got in the car is, I'm going to kill her, because it was a breaking point. Someone who was flat out making up stories to impact your life and get you sent away, basically, after years and years of this kind of mental abuse. But luckily for me, before I even began to formulate any kind of plan, by the time I got home from school the next day, she was gone, and that was it. It was over. She was gone for good. And I thought things were all right, but my dad and I didn't really get along after that. And I began seeking, I guess, what I had been missing through a lot of my childhood was that feeling of affection. So I started going into like desperate relationships, and I ended up blowing a dual enrollment career track because I ended up running off to another state and dropping out of school basically to live with some girl. And that kind of reckless behavior continued until I was probably about 20 something. And I did that with another person. But luckily, I had, family members that tolerated my, how best to describe, my fluctuations of emotion because during that time, it's, whenever you feel like you're not in control, sometimes it's only natural to react with anger, because it's the only way you feel like you can get or you can try to have some control. But luckily, I had either someone looking out for me and keeping me safe in these situations, and then my family, bailing me out and taking me back basically so that I could not end up, like in a ditch somewhere. Or there was at one point where I could have been stuck on the streets of Detroit in the middle of winter with like no belongings. But I got pulled out of that. And this whole period lasted until I was probably about like 24. So from it's reckless behavior from about 16 to 24. And it's hard to really bring to words even after I stopped kind of pursuing the desperate relationship thing. Is just I would go in and out of lengthy bouts of depression where I just didn't want to do anything. I felt suicidal quite frequently, where I was eagerly wanting to die, but I was smart enough to not try some of the more conventional things like people think of, like overdosing on the medication, or just simple, or even cutting like that, because sometimes those things really aren't guaranteed and you can end up just hurting yourself a lot more. So I just I guess I never really had the nerve to go through with it. And there were plenty of times where I would just stay awake at night, constantly like self-defeating myself in my own mind. My thoughts basically my worst enemy. So, and I guess that's where I started developing like a a detachment from people as well. So I started becoming socially withdrawn. You know, I still sometimes get anxiety in large crowds just because I'm nervous about being around people I don't know. Like I have a small comfort zone kind of thing. But I've been working to try to expand that as I've started to get better, which finally really started after I kind of started reaching another breaking point with my mental health, where I started developing physical signs as a symptom of anxiety, like a racing pulse when I'm, just sitting down and, you think nothing's bothering you, but pulse is like, 120 and your heart feel like palpitations in your heart. So it was that point where I was like, I had to go talk to somebody because it was starting to interfere with me, my being able to work. And when I finally talked to my doctor about it, she said, it's a really good thing that you talked about this, because most people, especially men, have a hard time, admitting to something like this. So I'm on like a small dose medication now, and it works pretty good. I don't really have the anxiety or the depression's down. So I mean, it's been quite a journey for a long time. But I guess, if I had the proper resources sooner, or even the know-how, I probably could have done better. But yeah, my advice, I guess, just, if you're going through something like that, be sure to reach out. Or if you know someone who seems very withdrawn, they're not enjoying things they normally used to enjoy, be sure to check on them, make sure, because you never know. My fiance and I actually had a brush with being on the tail end of someone being suicidal recently, and it was clear out of the blue for us. I mean, granted, person lived several states away, so we didn't see them all the time. But from our interactions, where we had no idea that this kind of thing was brewing, it's just there was probably signs. They're just so mundane, and something people don't normally think twice about. And then next thing you know, the person gone. And I'm glad that I never went through with something like that, because the feeling of being on the receiving end of knowing someone, like part of your family, that does that, it's indescribable. It's such a shock feeling of loss that I can't really accurately put it into words just how it makes me feel. But so if you know someone who's having difficulties, it's not something to be ashamed about. Mental health is part of everyone's wellness, and it's something that you should definitely want to take care of, because it can manifest into physical symptoms, and you don't want that for sure.
I from hearing your story, I could take some pieces out of it and relate it to mine as well. Very much. My parents wasn't a stable marriage. I didn't have a great relationship with my father. And much like you, I didn't seek the proper help, until recently. And you get desensitized. You really do get desensitized about like what normal is. Like you don't, until you stop to think about like, are my actions and what I'm doing day to day normal compared to what like, when I say normal, just for the listeners, I know everybody has their own different version of what normal is, but if it can't be wake up, take a shower, go to work, live a life and have some form of happiness, I bet you're over there like me, if you're trying to figure out how to like not have people in your life, then you got to question if what I'm doing is actually mentally okay. And like, even though you went through the rough childhood and growing up with it, you did, you started to escape and find outlets. Did you feel Did you feel at any point where these outlets and like skipping out on like things that could have benefited your life, did you feel that it was just not like there seems to be a small theme? So I'm just curious, did you ever feel there was like a small voice deep down saying like, don't do this? Like there was like this something in you trying to spark like normality or life back into you?
I think there's always been that kind of calling where I, want to be a part of like a community in a sense, have friends. That it was, I think a lot of it was like I had a lot of regrets because I had a pretty solid group of friends where I used to live up in Pennsylvania, and I ended up just tossing that out the window when I started making my reckless decisions. And in hindsight, that was a dumb thing. So I'd always kind of wanted to get back to that sort of thing. But the regrets, I think, at the same time were always pulling me back and forth between what I wanted to do and what I had lost out on.
Have you ever tried to go and make amends with any of those people?
Yeah, I tried, but I think, several years after the fact, high school was over then. A lot of people had moved on. I talked to a few of them for a little while. Gradually that dissipated down over the years, though. I think the biggest regret that I have, though, still is, losing out on my best friend that I had since fourth grade. He was a really good guy. He still is. I mean, I remember when, I guess he was so, I don't know if he would be mad at me for disclosing this, but he was so nervous about coming out to me that he had another friend be like kind of an in-between. And I was like, man, it's no problem. We were that close. So, and then after that, we were still pretty good friends. We hung out quite a lot till like I started getting into that reckless phase, and then I was just all over the place and not giving proper attention to the relationships that I had.
Do you, I mean, not knowing the, do you feel that, if you tried to make an attempt now to try to rekindle that friendship, do you think it would benefit you in a positive way if you sat down and explained to him like everything that happened? And I mean, considering like he went to you to even if you had a go between, he still went to you to tell you, and you said, hey, I completely understand. Do you think going back to him now and sitting down with him and saying, listen, just like you sat down with me, I'm going to sit down with you, and this is, X, Y, and Z, and I'd like to have that, a friendship again. Granted, it would never be the same, but it could be something new and something better. And do you think that would be something you'd look at, reaching out to him for?
That's a good question. I think the distance between us now would probably make it a little difficult to have the same or even a like relationship or friendship again. But as long as he's doing all right, I think I would be okay. I spent a lot of time trying to get over the regrets that I had and kind of move on from that whole chapter of my life. I realized the last time I was up there visiting, I tried to, go and stop by and see a few people, and I couldn't even get responses from half of them. So I just kind of was like, okay, they've moved on, so I need to do that too.
Most of the reason I asked is because I wonder, and I can't twist your arm, but for me, I wonder, would you be willing just to reach out to him? I mean, distance. I mean, I think today in the internet, the realm of the internet, I think distance is as distance is a thing. I understand like there's still time between travel, but I think in the world of the internet and Discord and phones and texting and everything like that, I think it's entirely possible that you could have that friendship again, especially if you considered him, very, very close. I'm just maybe playing a little bit of a devil's advocate on this one.
That's all right.
It'd be worth a try, because I'm pretty sure there's somebody out there who might be in the same boat as you, and they might be thinking like, maybe, should I also just move on? And to be, far be for me to say yay or nay on moving on. Like, if you feel like if it's the right thing to do, absolutely. But I don't think there's no harm in trying if they meant a lot to you, especially if they mean a lot to you. I think is just see, because to me, I think especially as people grow and change, there's always room for new first impressions.
That's true. I suppose if I could ever find a way to contact him again, I would try to reach out and see how he's doing at least.
Facebook's a wonderful thing, my friend.
That's where I originally had contact with him before, but then I think he deleted his profile several years ago. Yeah. So I'd have to see if he resurfaced. Yeah.
Well, if you do that, I do wish you luck. I do have some questions though, because you do work in the mental health field. What do you do in terms of your work?
In terms of what I do exactly?
Yeah.
Really, I'm just kind of like a lowly CNA level person, so it's a lot of just basic care kind of stuff. But I'm not like a therapist or anything like that. But even still, like, just because you're not a therapist doesn't mean you can't sit down and talk to somebody, listen to their problems. And a lot of times, that's all people really want, is they just want someone to listen to them and empathize with their problem, and then do what you can just to kind of make them comfortable as best you can in the situation they're in. Because I work in a facility that basically it receives people at their worst in a mental health state. So they sometimes you don't see people at their best there, or even it's hard to really explain in totality.
No, it makes sense to me. I get it. Like, so let me ask you this: Do you feel that? I mean, the most important part of it is that even if people feel like, hey, I don't want the help, or I don't need the help, or I shouldn't seek help. Do you feel that it's still important for them to attempt to, even if it's just to go to therapy and just to talk, like, not necessarily try to like work out everything, even if it's just to go meet with somebody, once a month, twice a week, whatever it is, just to talk, just to open up that line of communication? How important do you think that is?
I'd say it's very important, because sometimes even just venting, talking about what ails you, what bothers you, can be treatment that you need. Help get things off your chest. Yeah. I mean, I think if I had someone to talk to more so growing up, and would listen as well, I would probably have reached a less frustrated state with my childhood. But yeah, definitely, don't be afraid to go talk to somebody, because a lot of people, there's a very large stigmatism attached to mental health, because people think, oh, he's got a mental health problem, you're a psychopath, something like that. Not everyone who has mental health problem, that's the extreme end of the spectrum when you have people like that, and they need help just as much as anybody else. But where I work, the most important thing is, like, a bad day can land anybody there. You say the wrong thing in front of somebody, and the next thing you know, the police come, they get you. I think a lot of states have like a mandatory evaluation if you say like you're going to kill yourself, or basically if you're deemed a threat to yourself or others, they can take a judgment call based off of the situation and have you go somewhere to get help. And you may not like it, but in those situations, sometimes these people really do need the help. Like they're on the verge of, really doing harm to themselves, making a really bad life choice. So it's important to be mindful of your mental health the situation before it deteriorates to something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like it's, there's a lot of people that, and I'll use myself as an example where I went for years. I went like 10 plus years, and I just kept telling myself like, I'll go get the help, right? I would always tell myself, I'm going to go get help. This is it. I'm going to go get the help. And I would make an effort, like I'd make a small effort, like I'd go find a therapist and I would sit down and then I would stop, right? Like I'd only go for like 3 or 4 sessions and I would stop because I would tell myself, like I didn't feel like it was working, or like I wanted results ASAP, or I wasn't willing to put the work. Like there's a little, and I think that's sometimes an unknown truth about it, that there is there's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Like it's absolutely worth it. Like don't be lazy about it, but like there's this unknown, like just you have to put some work, some hustle in on your side to want to be better. And I think that's important to let people know. Just that little bit of extra oomph on your end is so worth it. Like just and even if it's just small changes as you're going through therapy or going to see a psychiatrist to, even for medication, it's making smaller changes along the way to start benefiting other facets of your life. Like, all right, I'm going to start talking, but also I'm going to start doing a 20-minute walk every day and getting out of the house for 20 minutes. And I think those little extra things will benefit you in the long run and get you out of I'm going to say it's like a permanent solution, but it'll start to help push you towards working on bettering yourself. And that's something you can start now with before you even go to therapy. Like if you're always inside your house, just say, hey, listen, you know what? I'm going to make an attempt once a day to go out and walk 20 minutes around my neighborhood. And it's just something, it's a goal, it's a thing. And it's those little things I think help benefit everyone in the long run, because it's those little bits of work. And they seem like small things can seem like big feats sometimes.
Right.
So, and then when you start doing it every day and it becomes your normal, you start to take away from that desensitization or that desensitized thought process and what your normal is, and start to fill it in the gaps with new things.
Yeah, that's well, even that, and then just exercise, being active in general can be good for your mental health because it gets your body going. But yeah, I had a similar mindset where I didn't want to get, well, not entirely similar to yours, but my mindset was I always thought that my problems were more mental, that a medication wouldn't be a cure-all. And I guess that's what it could be for most people, is that it's going to be a process you have to get through mentally, especially if you've been in a rut for a long time. It's not going to be, a quick fix. For me, even when I thought that I was out of the rut, like I was still having episodes of depression, anxiety, until, like I said, when it started boiling over to becoming a physical symptom. And that's when I, needed to go talk to someone saying, hey, this is going on, I need help with this. I got a medication to help me cope with those things. So it's nothing to be ashamed about, but at the same time, it's like, it's not going to be an instant gratification. You got to, like you said, put in the effort, even small goals, or even, that's one thing that's been really nice about Final Fantasy is, like, especially in the raid setting, you work with a group of people and trying to, I like raiding a lot. So I like the feeling of beating the 4th tier boss, and then it's such a rush, because you work so hard to do it. And when you finally do it, it's like a big goal you've achieved and you feel good about it.
I agree. I think having things like Final Fantasy 14 and gaming, like online gaming in general, like I was always a big proponent, even in my darkest times. And I'll even say it as this, like when I first started playing MMOs, I was doing, I played WoW, and like as much as I liked the human interaction that I was getting, even though it was, for me, I needed, as much as I was trying to push people away, it filled that void for me. And and for me, I could have said easily this was my excuse to not deal with people in a sense of other ways. But when you start to break past that and you go to stuff like FanFest and you start to break out of your shell, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to FanFest and meet these people that I raid with, or meet my FC and meet my friends. That's when you take that next step and say, this, now it's becoming real. It's not just, these are the people I game with. Now these are my friends and I'm meeting them, and I'm going to go to the FanFest. I'm going to go to KupoCon, whatever it is, KupoCon or some convention. We're going to meet up. We're all in the same state, whatever the case is. And, and I think that's something, at least now in this generation, that is entirely possible, which I don't think was impossible. Like, I think even when, like, at least when my parents were growing up, or it's, I mean, we were raised on the generation of the internet, so we got lucky. So so I mean, and if anybody's using the game as a way to fill in that gap of needing or wanting people, make sure that you also are not neglecting the IRL part of it too. Like, the game is great. I will always, like, I would say the best community, Final Fantasy 14 has got one of the best communities. But always make sure you're still on the IRL you is still making sure that you're doing what's needed for you. So you can live the best life that you can be having, not just your character.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I finally got to attend my first fan fest. I was able to afford it this last year in Las Vegas. So I got to meet my free company members from my raid team. And I got to say, it was quite a big step going out and meeting people that from the internet, that because you used to hear a lot of horror stories about people on the internet, but now it's like a lot more of a common thing. You go meet up with people, deal, and we had a lot of fun. It was it's a good experience. And then even at the fan fest itself, there was the whole situation of the tickets. How they sold out, or no, the website went down like right as they were supposed to come up, and then a minute later, like, all the tickets had sold, and people who were there, like, kind of like quote first, but they didn't get theirs. So there's a lot of people there, myself included, where there was I think it was the infamous yellow sign they were holding up, saying, hey, if you've got extra tickets, come talk to me. And then I remember sitting there, and some people were coming up and just like, here's an extra ticket for, like, not even selling it. I mean, there was, like, I encountered one bad egg there, but that was a minority, I'd say, for a lot of people who came up and they were just like, hey, here, you can have a ticket, or hey, I'll give it to you at a discount price. So it was a really good community, and then people were sitting there talking, just carrying on like normal people, like even waiting in line for stuff. When you got together for the challenges, you get to talk with people, work things out, public setting. So it was like Duty Finder, but in real life, and it wasn't that bad, and it brings a perspective that there's other real people on the other side of the monitor playing the game. So there is a level of human interaction there still, and like you said, in the age of the internet, we have the capacity to be, friends with somebody on the other side of the world, over in Europe or Japan. And I think I think that really kind of broadens horizons in a sense. I mean, obviously it's not the same as meeting people in real life, but there's still a touch of that humanity there, so where you can still get your social interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, with the interaction part, the game, your story, do you feel that now where you're at, considering your past, you are in a much better, I mean, to me, I feel like we're always growing every day, and we're not the same person we were yesterday. But do you feel that
Absolutely.
you're constantly growing, and you're feeling like every day is just like, hey, new day, better's on? Like, do you feel like that's the case?
Honestly, that's kind of been part of my core belief system, or one of my core beliefs since I was younger. Because I remember when I was younger, and I found out, hey, like 50% of marriages end in divorce, and people are a bunch of cheaters, and I'm like, whoa, that's terrible. So I'm gonna aim to be better than that. And I don't know how, but I think over the years that kind of developed, rather than just being better than being, a cheater, or, um, you know, not working on a relationship to the point where it ends in a divorce. It ended up being like working on being a better person in general.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been my goal to try and improve as best I can, and make sure, and try to make sure that when I make a mistake that I'm learning from it, so that I don't keep repeating it.
Yeah, I know. Get that. Sadly, I've made many a repetitive mistake before I got help. So it's
And that's okay. Sometimes it takes the mistake for us to learn something, and we might fail a few times, but that's just part of the process.
It is definitely part of the process. To have that impetus to helps you go get help is great. Sometimes it could be a person, sometimes it could be an action. To me, I carry what I did with me, but not as. And I used to do it, but I used to beat myself up over it, which isn't healthy. Now I still carry those things, but as reminders of where I don't want to be again, and the actions I don't want to take again. And I think that's important for me to hold on to those things and be like, all right, I'm not beating myself up anymore, but it sucks that I did that. And but I'm not going to blame myself, but I am going to constantly remind myself every day, like, all right, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Be the better guy. Don't be that guy.
Right.
So, we're coming up, close to the 40-minute mark here.
Wow, already?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it goes quick. It goes quick. Did you want to, I don't know if you have anything to plug, but if you have something to plug, you can plug it.
The plug?
Yeah, like if you do a show, Twitch channel, do you have a Twitch channel? You want to?
Oh, no, not really.
No, all right.
I had always wanted to get into something like that, but I just never invested the time into it.
All right. Do you have a Twitter account, maybe, or Instagram, like something for like anything like that? Nothing. All right. Well,
I have a YouTube, but I haven't really uploaded anything in years. So the only thing I have up there, I think, from like Final Fantasy 11.
Hey, go check it out. Just plug it real quick. Let's see if you get a couple of hits. Let's see if you get a couple.
Space, just my name, Zonax EXE on YouTube. So
yeah, there you go. Go check it out. Go check out his Final Fantasy 11 videos.
Some of the old school level 75 caps clears and stuff.
There you go. You never know. Some people are like, "This is dope. This is good content." You'll get 3.
My old school video editing skills, or not even really skills. Just what was it? Windows Movie Maker.
I was going to say Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll get around to working on some 14 stuff at some point.
There you go. I as always on the episodes, we want to make sure that we let folks know that, myself, I'm not a therapist. I am not licensed. I am not giving you any sort of like legitimate advice. I can just tell you, like, go seek proper help and go seek a professional. And as we said before, if you're in a country that offers free healthcare, please take advantage of it. Go and seek and take that first step, make that call, and go get it. And if you need a friend there, ask them. They'll be there for you. And if you are in the States, as we know, there is different levels of help for all different incomes, and you seek what your state has available for you. And if you have insurance, go ahead and use that, and get the help you need. You are completely worth it. And I don't think anyone that has talked to me today would say anything different. Do you have anything to add to that?
Even, like I said earlier on, if you know someone going through a rough patch, or you see them socially withdrawn, just kind of be aware of like some kind of the more mundane symptoms of you might not think twice about, that it could be a precursor to something much worse, about to happen. I mean, you look at, was it Chester Bennington, I believe, the Linkin Park singer, and then Robin Williams. Even the day before Chester died, they put up a video where he just seemed so happy. He was having a great time. I mean, I understand he struggled with depression for years, from what I read, but still, they said it just came out of the blue for them. And then the same thing with Robin Williams. He was such a happy, smiling face. And then sometimes I think it's the people who can seem the happiest, that they might actually be just trying to cover for something bothering them down inside. So just be aware of certain things. Listen to people. Sometimes that's all it really takes, is just sitting down. If they have something they want to get off their chest, talk with them. A lot of times that's all people really need, is they just want someone to talk to, and that helps them get through the day. So just be there for people if they really need it. That sort of thing.
I couldn't agree more. Zahn, thank you for joining me for this talk. I
no problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for reaching out. You saw the post and you were like, "Hey," so.
I since I started working where I'm at, it's become more and more of a vested interest because it's personal.
Yeah.
So trying to help people more as best I can. Even if it's just sharing a story, sharing little tidbits of personal advice. I like being able to give back a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
I agree.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And you can go, like I said, you can go check Zahn out his YouTube channel and give him a follow and see patiently wait for the Final Fantasy 14 stuff to post. But in the meantime, watch that old school 11 content.
Yeah.
Of course, you can find us over at maelstromradio.com and of course on Twitter at maelstrom_radio. Our DMs are open. Our emails at show@maelstromradio.com. So if you have any questions, you need to reach out, even just to have a chat with us. We will, it's open. We are here for you as well. Thank you and have a good one. Thank you for listening to Here With Me. Please stay tuned for more episodes in the series.